Author is funded by the Pacific Northwest Writers Association, supporting writers from pen to publication since 1955. To learn more about the PNWA and their yearly conference, please go to pnwa.org. Hi, this is Bill Kenower of Author Magazine, and we're here at Third Place Books in Lake Forest Park with Emily Giffin, author of Where We Belong. Emily, welcome to Author.
Well, thank you.
I find myself once again sitting across from another lawyer turned writer.
Happens a lot, doesn't it?
It does. It happens all the time.
You want my theory?
I do want your theory,
Okay.
yes.
My theory is that people go to law school because they are accustomed to achieving. They want to achieve, but they have no idea what they want to achieve, or else they're afraid to pursue their real passion. So that's sort of type A, as opposed to people who go to medical school who know that they want to be a doctor. So you don't have a lot of people who go to medical school and then drop out to be a writer.
I agree. I think you're onto something. And I think that the law is interesting in that you can have success in terms of money and visibility and not actually like doing it.
Well,
love doing it.
Even. Definitely. I mean, I had no passion for it whatsoever. I always wanted to be a writer.
Yeah.
But I found myself sort of midway through college thinking, what if I graduate and start writing a novel and it doesn't go well, then what will I have? So it was sort of there's a safety in going to law school.
Of course.
And I don't regret it because I think sometimes that when you make a decision, whether it's about a relationship or a job or life path, and you affirmatively are, miserable on that path, it sort of motivates you more to do what it is you love than if you were just, lukewarm about it. So.
Right.
And any life experience, whether negative, positive, in between, is material for a writer. So.
Well, and you start learning when you do this career that it's the money and the whatever accolades might come with it have no value if the actual experience, the day in and day out experience, is not pleasing to you.
Right.
Whereas I know, according to your charmingly written bio on your website, by the way.
Did you like that?
I loved it.
Thank you.
It's one of the few bios I've enjoyed reading.
Well, thank you.
And that you really were drawn to this from the get-go. And you kept a diary for how long? 20 some odd years?
Well, yeah. I mean, I've kept it longer than that, but I had a stretch of, I think, like 15 years where I didn't skip a day, which I think cuts more to OCD than...
What did you write in it?
Does. It was...
Now, come on.
Honestly, it was... and the reason that I can answer this so, certainly, is because I went back recently and read the entries when I was writing Where We Belong, because Kirby, one of the protagonists, is 18. So I thought, well, I'll go back and read my journals to get sort of more in touch with that voice. Was it helpful? It was very helpful. It was very dull reading for the most part, but it was very helpful in that I remember high school being a somewhat happy time. I look back and I think you do that with memories, but you had your school dances and I was on the soccer team and editor of the newspaper.
Right.
But when I read these entries, it was just like angst after, and I think Kirby is struggling with a sense of identity. And for her, it had to do more with her adoption. But I think we all go through that it throughout our lives, but certainly at that juncture in high school. Like, where am I going? Who am I? Where do I fit in? Where do I belong?
Writers go through that. Who am I as a writer? What do I want? Am I just literary? Am I genre?
Right.
Did you go through that at all? Something Borrowed was your first
That is a very good question. I haven't been asked that in a long time.
Thank you.
Because I didn't think when I wrote the book, your focus is to get published. So, but you're thinking like, I hope that this works out. But you're not thinking beyond that into the marketing stage of things. So my working title for Something Borrowed was actually Rolling the Dice. Rolling the Dice, Stephen, was that what it was? My publicist is over there. And because there was a scene where she did that. Well, once I got the book deal, my editor came back and said, this title isn't working, because this was on the heels of Bridget Jones' Diary, the huge success and the explosion of this genre. So she wanted to sort of market it that way. So she said, can you think of something more girly? And then, of course, I saw the pink cover with the sparkling ring on it, and So I never really thought about those things until after, I got the book deal and moved forward with it.
Now, you say the goal is to get published,
well,
but isn't it really first to write the book that you actually wanted to write, and then to get it published?
Well, sure. As I was saying those words, I thought that's not exactly what I meant to say. But my commercial goal, my purpose of leaving the law for 1 year was, to...
Not to write a diary for a year.
Right. It was, I had a purpose, otherwise I would have to go back and practice law.
Right.
But you're right. You're absolutely right. If your goal, and I tell writers this, who are trying to get published, you have to be true to your voice, your story. You have to. If you try to write about vampires because that's hot, or if I tried to write a chick lit novel, really, if you read something borrowed and you divorce yourself from the title and the cover, it's got a sort of melancholic ending, and it doesn't bear some of the hallmarks of, I think, the chick lit genre. So you're absolutely right. You have to love what you're doing and be passionate about it and be authentic to the story that's inside you.
So this is 5 or 6?
This is the 6th.
Okay.
Yes.
So all writers keep learning with every sentence, I think, they write. What did you learn?
Oh, I wish I learned
this?
with every sentence.
Well, you might in a way you don't know.
Okay.
But what did you learn writing this that you're going to take to book 7? That you took to book 7, because I'm sure it's well underway.
Oh, that's hard to answer. I think one particular thing that I learned from this. I think that I grow with each book in some way. I think that I like to think that my books get more layered, and I certainly have grown up with my characters. Now I think they're just the stakes are higher. These characters that they've grown up, they're older. There's children involved. It's always been messy. My characters and scenarios have always been messy and complicated, and I like to explore the gray areas. And my characters, I like to say, are good people who make wholly unsympathetic choices. And
that makes good fiction.
But that's I think life, and that's why I think they're relatable, and that's why I think that they've done well, and I think that's the key to the staying power of growing my readership, because they're universal, and I think when men do read them, they get past the cover, the peach cover. I think that you can find that to be the case.
Okay, I usually get this right. I'm 90%, but I'm having trouble with you. I think you're an outliner.
Oh.
I think you're an outliner.
No.
Ah.
I know. I'm surprised. I thought you would call it. Well, maybe it's because I went to law school and then practiced law and wrote the briefs. So. Maybe that threw you off.
I don't know.
Maybe it's because my thoughts seem very organized.
Maybe, yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
No, you're not an outliner.
I think no, I'm not, and I wish that I were actually. And
no, don't say that.
Well, I do, and
no, you don't.
Well, in some ways, I always vow to. Okay, I'll be more systematic in the next one, because I think it does. I really do believe it saves time. I publish a book every other year. You don't think?
Not if you're not an outliner. It only makes it worse.
Does it?
Yes.
Okay, well, that's
Take it from a non-outliner who tried to outline. It only confused the issue.
I mean, I have a beginning, middle, and end in mind.
Right, yeah.
I have the premise and where I think the story's going, but it never follows that. And that's because I don't know the characters well enough, and it's very character-driven.
You have to write it to know it, don't you?
Yes, I think. It's like getting to know a person, a friend. And in the beginning, the characters just sort of have this, you can control them. You can pick their zodiac sign. I don't even know why I said that. I don't know the zodiac signs, but you can pick everything, where they went to college, how smart they are, what they like to read, what the music they like. At about the halfway point, and at the third of the way through, if I'm lucky, the characters become so clear in my mind, and I'm really following their path rather than what I want them to do. So, and sometimes it's frustrating because I want them to do other things.
But they don't do it, do they?
No.
So, all right, so say this, a writer's young woman, she's come to you, she wants to write a book, she loves to write, but she's afraid, she doesn't have what it takes. Should I do it? I don't want to go broke.
This is what I would say. I would say I feel that way every single day. Every day of writing, which is either really discouraging and, but it's the truth. And I think that if I compared myself to Alice Munro every time I sat down to do a day's work, I mean, I would go back to the law, I would do anything but write. So I think you just it's part of the rejection's part of the process, frustration, writer's block. Writer's block's no different than not wanting to go to the gym. Who wants to go to the gym? Nobody. Who wants to write? In some ways, as much as you love it, it's a struggle. especially when you're raised, you have the bar at sort of perfection and writing the perfect sentence or comparing yourself to Stephen King or Alice Munro or someone else. Just tell your story and get the words down on the page and just be who you are. I mean, that's advice I think that transcends writing.
It does.
Don't compare your look to anyone else. Don't compare. I mean, it sounds so glib, but it's really true. I mean, so good luck.